Hello viewers, welcome to bharatshakti.in. I am Brigadier S.K. Chatterjee and today we're going to talk about Siachen, the highest battlefield in the world. 3 decades back, more than 3 decades back in fact, is when we occupied Siachen, when our troops went up and occupied the Siachen Glacier. I have with me Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, who was Captain Sanjay Kulkarni then, and he led one of the first troops to be climbing up on top of the glacier and establishing his post. And thereby, perhaps, it is till today that we still retain those posts that are there on Siachen Glacier. Welcome to Bharat Shakti.in, General Kulkarni, and I'm sure your experiences will be of much interest to our viewers.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The first thing that I really want to ask you is give us a little bit of a background, the strategic importance of Siachen. Why is it that we are holding on to the highest battlefield for over 3 decades? What are the compulsions really?
When you look back 13th of April 1984, the day when we had to reoccupy, or I would say hold Siachen Glacier, it was with a very clear-cut premise that Pakistan cannot be trusted. Why do I say that Pakistan cannot be trusted? The Karachi Agreement was quite clear that the line drawn up to NJ 9842 and the word used was Chalunka and thence northwards. And thence northwards because it was considered then that this area is inhospitable. It probably people won't be able to go there and be able to understand at that point of time in 1949 when the Karachi Agreement was signed. And therefore, it was left as a no man's land, undemarcated. And undemarcated meant that Pakistan wouldn't come there, and neither would the Indians be going there. By Pakistan's own admission, they started to have almost 50 foreign expeditions being sponsored by Pakistan from their part of the Pak-occupied Kashmir through the passes of the Saltoro ridgeline that gave access to Siachen Glacier, and which was then known to us by then Colonel N. Kumar, who was the commandant of the High Altitude Warfare School, and which he brought it to the notice of the Army headquarters that through his friend that he was planning to go around some of the peaks, climb the peaks, beautiful peaks, unbelievable beautiful peaks in that entire area of Karakoram ranges. And he said, how are you going? And that is the time that we realized that slowly and steadily, Pakistan was doing cartographic aggression of this entire area, which we thought all along was undemarcated and therefore a no man's land on whose right was to be decided later, which Pakistan did not adhere to it and decided to do what they were doing till 1978-79 when it first came to our notice. Thereafter, we decided to be going quite regularly over there, and in 1982 we did go there. In 83 we went there, and in 84, before we launched Operation Meghdoot on 13th of April 1984, it was at this point of time that India had got adequate intelligence by Pakistan's own admission that they were to occupy Siachen on the 1st of May 1984. Now this is revealed by Musharraf in his book, In the Line of Fire. So there was no doubt that Pakistanis can't be trusted, number one. Number two, the Pakistanis had intentions of occupying Siachen. Had we not gone and occupied Siachen, they would have come and occupied Siachen on the 1st of May. It was just that they could not possibly be doing it before 1st of May, which again is revealed by Musharraf in his book and by subsequent their own generals whenever they do discuss that they found that area inhospitable, unbelievably very, very cold with very strong I would say winds that were to blow at that point of time, and in such blizzardous weather they thought it would be suicidal. Instead, we, the Indian Army, decided to occupy Siachen Glacier on the 30th of April 1984 and thereby totally taking Pakistan by surprise, and till date we continue to hold the ridgeline of Saltoro and the entire Siachen which is 76 kilometers long, approximately 5 to 10 kilometers wide, and goes as high as 20,000 feet, terminating at a point called Indira Kol.
Okay, thank you, General. Thank you so much for a very well-rounded background briefing, I would say, of the subject. I want to come down to something which is interesting, take you back to your days when you were a captain there in Siachen. How did you induct? Tell us your induction process. How did you go up those slopes really with your men? Were you ferried in helicopters to a point? How was it like really?
You know, as I mentioned that I got associated with this glacier in 1983 to be precise. So I had almost 4 months of exposure to the glacier as part of the long range patrolling that we would be doing on Siachen. So I was aware what Siachen is all about. I knew the pass of Belafondla. I knew the way to Indira Kol. I knew the way to Siala. So there was a lot that I was aware of because of my association with it as a patrol 2IC in 1983.
Just tell me, how long are these long-range patrols?
Those days, we would invariably be inducting sometime around the month of July, August, and then de-induct after about 80, 90 days from the Siachen Glacier. And it was in 1983 when we de-inducted, Pakistanis inducted into Siachen Glacier, knowing that the Indians have de-inducted, let us go and occupy the glacier. Unable to occupy, they had to de-induct. And since they de-inducted, they decided that they would come again in 1984 and occupy the Siachen. Having given a small background, in 1983, my association, so I knew what exactly Siachen Glacier was all about. We were told that, look, again, patrolling would have to be done this time in 1984, and it would not be as normally in July, August. It would be a little earlier. The day had not been fixed, for which then our training started. Having trained, because after all, we were to induct ourselves, we were all staying in between 10 and 11,000 feet. We were to induct between 18 and 20,000 feet. And therefore, training was very essential. Acclimatization was very essential. To be able to live in isolation was very essential. To be able to confront the enemy was equally essential. So we had to be physically fit, we had to be mentally robust, and we, at the same time, should we confront the enemy there, we should be able to defeat them and not let them occupy Siachen. So with that as a background, we were told that we would be inducted by the helicopters, which would be then taking off on the 13th of April at early hours of the morning. I had done a recce on the 12th of April to see how the glacier looked like. So if we found it was absolutely clear, blue skies, lovely weather, and all set, we were to induct ourselves on the 13th. On the 13th of April, the early hours of the morning at about 5:30, when we were all set, two each in an helicopter, the small cheetah that we had. So there were two helicopters that took off, with me and my radio operator in one, and two of my old buddies who were also there in 1983 with me in the other helicopter. And when we reached closer to Belafondla, where I was to be dropped, I was told, I'm sorry, the pilot told me, I cannot land. I said, what do you mean you cannot land? He says, I'm not too sure whether the snow is soft, whether if we land, would we be able to sustain, hold ourselves? Will I be able to take off? I said, what do you want me to do? He said, you just jump. I said, okay, I don't mind jumping, but I suggest you hover a little low and let me see for myself how hard the surface is down below. If I sink, then obviously it's a different story. I said, since we were the first to induct, I had a small Ateka bori with me, which had about 20 odd kgs of atta because we were to go there for some time. And I said, let me first throw this Ateka bori and see how deep does it go in. We pushed that and I found that it was on the surface, it hadn't sunk. That means the ice was really hard, and I told him, no problems, I can jump. So he's lowered over and I jumped down from the helicopter. As soon as I jumped, he was flying low over me. He gave me a thumbs. Is it okay? I said, yeah, perfectly fine. No problems. He said, right. Then he landed on the glacier. The radio operator, along with his radio set, then came down, and the other one then was given a thumbs up. The second helicopter, which was hovering on top of us, it landed. The four of us then landed little short of Belafondla, and that was the first induction, 30th of April, 1984, early hours of morning.
Must have been a great day.
And I must mention here, sir, that it was Baisakhi. 13th April was Baisakhi. And
Yeah,
most people kept telling us, look, yeah, it's 13th of April, 13 is not a very lucky day. The commander then, Brigadier Channa, was convinced. He said it may be unlucky only for Pakistan, but this is the most holiest day for India, and we will surely be occupying it, and I assure you there will be no resistance. And sure enough, he was right.
it was a great day in your life, I would say, very, very great day in your life. Having heard from you about the induction process, before we go further, can you just tell me what was the Pakistani strategy like? Uh, how were you expecting them to respond to all this? After all, they will have seen the helicopters, they will have seen you deploying, not just at Bilafondla, some actions must have been going on parallelly at other points also. So what was their strategy, you thought?
This is something very interesting because the 12th of April, when the recce was done, the skies were blue, the whole day was clear. On the 13th of April, when early hours in the morning, when we took off from the base camp, perfect, absolutely clear weather. And around 10:30, 11, the weather turned bad. And since the weather started turning bad, the same set of helicopters were to take the platoon for Siala. After having dropped the platoon at Belafondla, a platoon means there were 30 of us. I had my company commander, Major Sandhu, with me, and he was there, I was there. We were the only two officers, and there were two JCOs, and the rest of us were men for Belafondla. And similar set of group under Major Bahuguna were to land at Siala. Now, since the weather turned bad on the 13th of April by about 11:30, 12, the second set for to go and occupy Siala had to be deferred because of the blizzardous weather. Suddenly the weather turned bad. And now that the weather turned bad, so 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, absolutely bad weather. There was just no question of anybody coming close to us. And meanwhile, on the 13th itself, when we landed, within about an hour or so, the radio operator who came along with me suffered from high altitude pulmonary edema and he was taken sick. He said he just couldn't breathe. He was absolutely breathless despite having been trained for so long. Then he had to be evacuated the same day. So from 30, we became 29. And we were given clear instructions that we should not open the radio set. Because the moment we open the radio set, obviously the adversaries would get to know that there is some harkat which is going around on the top of Siachen. So it was radio silence. We were there. The weather had turned bad. So probably the Pakistanis didn't get to know anything that would have happened over there. It is on the 16th, I think it was around the 16th of April, when one of my buddies who was in the second helicopter on the same day, he died. And since he passed away because of HAPO, we were just walking up to Belafondla. I was called back by the company commander. He said, look, Ramesh, I think something's gone wrong. We came close and we found that he was all froth in his mouth and the poor thing had passed away. Now, since he had passed away there, and then we were in tents, and each tent had, for us as officers, we were two in one small tent, and for men, there were three. Now that this boy would be one amongst those other two, we had nothing spare girls with us. We didn't want him. So I was forced. The company commander said, look, we are supposed to have radio silence. What do we do now? I said, sir, whatever be it, we have to tell them that we've lost a boy and he has to be taken down. Otherwise, if we are going to be spending the night over here, it's not going to be so easy. So we opened the radio set. Believe you me, sir, the moment we opened the radio set, within no time, you found that the Pakistani helicopter was right on top of Belafondla. They spotted us and he just took a U-turn and it took off. Pakistanis got to know by opening up the radio set that the Indians have sitting in Belafondla, and immediately the helicopters came. They took Ramesh from there and the induction for Siala started. That means the induction for Siala, which was to be on the 13th, took place, I think, on the 17th of April. And the 17th of April, the induction for Siala. So Siala was occupied, Belafondla was occupied. Pakistanis were defeated. They couldn't occupy or come anywhere close to these two main passes, that is the main ingress into Siachen from Soltoro onto Siachen.
Just tell me, Bilafondla was your battalion, the battalion Siala, it's all your battalion, same as?
No, Belafondla was Fort Kumau and Siala was Ladakh Scouts.
Ladakh Scouts. Okay.
Siala was Ladakh Scouts.
Okay. Let's take the story a little further. I believe one of those big attempt by the Pakistanis to dislodge you came on the 23rd of June, if I'm not wrong. There are a couple of battles.
The 17th of April, when the
Yeah.
Pakistanis detected us on top of this thing, they attempted to, now try and move. Very interesting. I suddenly realized after a long time I'd seen a white crow in 1983.
Okay.
And in 1984, again, I saw a crow coming towards us. I said, if there's a crow which is coming towards us, that means there is some habitation or some human movement which is taking place behind him. Otherwise, how else has this crow decided to come this way? Sure enough, by night, we spotted that the Pakistanis were on Ali Brangza. Ali Brangza is onto the western slopes of the Soltoro ranges, going towards Skardu, that is towards the Pak-occupied Kashmir in the Gilgit area. And that is where we spotted them. So the Pakistanis had come close. They decided around the first, I would say, a skirmish, not an attack in full form, kind of trying to, convey to us that we are also sitting in front of you. So they did some firing on around the 23rd of April or something like that. And that was the end of it. The real attack to dislodge us from Belafondla came on the 23rd of June, 1984.
If I'm
And
not, that's the longest day.
the longest day. And
Possibly the longest day in your life also.
absolute longest day in my life. Believe you me, I had never ever faced an attack as a youngster. And I didn't know what it would be all about. But yes, on the 22nd of June, we did have shelling by their mortars onto our post. So we were aware that thing. And I heard around lunchtime small arms firing also on their side. And there was one more officer who joined me. But this time I was the only officer on top of Belafondla. So on the 22nd of June, Chavan, who later also became DGMT, Lieutenant General Avinash Lakshman Rao Chavan, he came to me a day prior as to sort of reinforce. And I told him, I said, look, that's your small little slit bunker there. That is where the two of us were on top of it. I said, something is going to happen. Sure enough, on the 22nd of June in the evening, they shelled our location. And luck would have it, we did fire mortars in the evening of that day. As a result of which the mortar base plate, sort of sunk in and took it a little hardened ice by the time. On 23rd of June, early hours of the morning, at around 4 o'clock, I get my patrol leader who would be patrolling all around. We had everybody patrolling the post. So for 1 hour, he came and told me, Sahab, Dushman. I said, what? Dushman? यहाँ पे कहाँ आ गया दुश्मन? He said, नहीं साहब, चंचल जो है वो he was on the edge of Belafondla. He said, साहब उसने देखा है and वो कुछ काला काला उसको बर्फ के ऊपर नजर आ रहा है और हरकत हो रही है, वो हिल रहा है. ऐसे ठीक, ऐसे सबको बोलो stand 2 पे हो जाओ. So moment I alerted people to get on to stand 2 and I came out of my tent, heavy firing from the park side started. And the first shot that came was to hit Chanchal on his head. Chanchal was dead. Yeah. And the shots went to my tent because my tent was a little in the forefront. So went to my tent, ripped to the other. Nobody else was injured other than Chanchal. But we were alerted. And thereafter then we had to defeat the Pakistanis. The Pakistanis couldn't come anywhere close. They must have been about 500 meters up, coming up the slope. The whole attack failed. They all had to withdraw. They had to carry back their dead bodies. So it was very difficult. So and that particular attack carried on till about 12 in the noon. 12 in the noon, the attack, because they came early hours in the morning and continued to fire. And the mortar that we had fired, we ensured, again, I must say, just sheer luck that the third round of the mortar fell on the HMG. And since it fell on their HMG, the HMG fire stopped. And now there was no small arms as such firing coming onto us. And thereafter, then the Pakistanis were on the run. They got back to the place from where they started, that is Ali Brangza. And since then, they've been trying so many attacks. Musharraf, who was then a colonel in the MO branch in 1984, later when he became a brigadier and commanding the SSG, decided to launch so many attacks on Belafondla. All failed, in which Bana got the Paramveer Chakra.
Okay, right. Thank you. I think that's a lot. Well, let's go a little faster now. And I'll talk about, can you give me a little bit of a comparison between how was your post maintained then? And I believe you were at tenure again as the Chief of Staff of Fire and Fury Corps in 2016. And how was, let's say, the logistics being organized now? What's the difference How much of an improvement?
Oh, world of a difference. World of a difference. At the time when we went there, we were in small pup tents which had been imported by General Hoon was responsible to have got the first set of imported equipment which came to us from Switzerland and Europe and all over. So there was two, pup tents in which there was two people. So we would all be staying in pup tents, no electricity. Of course, water means you have to only have ice. And kerosene was limited. We used to have fire kings, a jelly kind of a thing, which would keep us warm. The clothing was fantastic. The clothing was made of down, so it was fantastic. But all of us. But now, subsequently, when I went, I found people who were staying in nice, good huts made over there. There were dish TVs. People could watch television. There were satellite telephones. A lot of improvement had taken place after George Fernandez had become the defense minister. By his initiative, a lot of people went up there. So you had telephones. You could communicate with your families. You had electricity. You had generators. You had a whole lot of works, the number of helicopters that were flying over there, the kind of sustenance that they had then. We had fixed wing flying, also droppings over there. We had even helicopters dropping us for rations over there. The same thing continuing thereafter also. So a lot of improvement. And now, surprisingly, when I find the quarantine today and people being told to stay indoors, none of us, despite the call from the Prime Minister for the Lakshman Rekha, don't step out of the house, stay inside with electricity, water, entertainment, all of it assured in your home environment. None of us are able to stay inside, and you find a whole lot of FIRs being lodged for people stepping out, going out. And here we were with nothing, absolutely nothing, all ourselves. And even what we could talk of now, social distancing, we had tactical distancing. Obviously, between the two tents, we had to have tactical distance, and that what could be termed as isolation and wanting to stay. It was really tough at that point of time, but clothing was wonderful. I would say a little comfort which came up later, now that I saw as a chief of staff, was very good. The food then was also very good. But only thing was people can't eat. You could have chocolates, you could have badam, you could have kishmish, you could have all the works of dry fruits and everything given to you. But there isn't desire to eat. But availability wise, fantastic.
Well, I guess if you give the badam, etc., now to people in
Even
they're
now, also, you find boys can't eat. Boys can't eat because it's
you
very
have
difficult at that height of 18,000 and above to really eat. Though, yes, if you acclimatize, then I'm sure you just might be able. But then I must tell you, 90 days of my stay there, I did not take bath. As it is. And when I look back, I find, wow, I stayed without bath for 90 days.
I'm glad I didn't meet you then. Okay.
Yeah, nobody would come close to me.
One more question before we wind up. I think we're running a little short in terms of time now. Tell me, you had a tremendous amount of aviation, helicopter support, and you had artillery support. About both these systems, how did you use your aviation and how did you use your artillery there?
In fact, the entire lifeline was the aviation.
Yeah.
Lifeline was aviation. Without helicopters, without the porters, it's impossible. You just can't survive. So the helicopter support was fantastic. It was Air Force at the same time, not just the Air Force. I will say the you could even look at the Air Force, the porters, the Army aviation, all of them. What kind of support? And even the artillery support that came later to us. I had the Grad Ps with me, I had the missiles with me, I had the whole lot of 120mm mortars with me. Fantastic. Even now, subsequently, of course, that thing had got much higher than what we had at that point of time. But yes, without the RT support and without the aviation support, it was not possible. It was just not possible.
Well, thank you, Jal. It's been nice for taking you back to a captain and then again switching on to a general and now a retired general. You put in the entire story together for our viewers. I'm sure they enjoyed it thoroughly. And all the best to our boys there in Siachen from you, me, and I'm sure the viewers would also like to join us. We're very proud of them, and I'm sure they will defend the motherland at all costs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for remembering the Meghdoot Day. Thank you.